Welcome back to day 23 of our journey through the scriptures. Today, we dive deep into the King James Bible's Exodus chapters 17 to 19, a pivotal phase in the Israelites' pursuit of liberty. These sections powerfully portray God's guidance and pledges to his devoted followers. We're scheduled to explore key incidents, each echoing the divine wisdom embodied in the scriptures. For starters, we have a miracle straight from Exodus 17:6, the water from the rock at Massa and Merbah, an act that underscores the omnipotence of God's provision in the most astonishing of places. Up next, we'll look into a significant battle, the confrontation with Amalek as detailed in Exodus 17:8-13. This event symbolizes the perpetual struggle between good and evil, a battle we each must face in our own lives. Finally, we have an awe-inspiring encounter with the divine, the arrival at Mount Sinai as laid out in Exodus 19:1-2. This magnificent event serves as a powerful reminder of God's omnipresence and his divine plan for humanity. Each of these events, beautifully narrated in the scriptures, carries a profound message for us all, so let's commence with our first scene, the miraculous event of Exodus 17:6. Does water indeed have the capacity to gush forth from a stone? This might seem like an illogical question. Nonetheless, it is integral to our inquiry in this first chapter, Exodus 17. The scriptures state in Exodus 17:6, "Behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink." This chapter submerges us in a riveting tale where Moses, the main character, heeds this divine command, a rock is struck, and water is provided to quench the thirst of the parched Israelites. The main tenet of this narrative, as illustrated in Exodus 17:2-4, is an absolute trust in God's provision and protection. This elucidates the promise of God's assurance, a promise that underlines the divine guarantee sustenance, even in the most desolate scenarios. Moses, the chief personality in this enthralling narrative, exhibits leadership in its purest form. This tale is not just about his stewardship, it is also about his symbolic portrayal of Christ as the living water as mentioned in Exodus 17:6, an allegory that highlights his spiritual relevance. Moreover, Exodus 17:3-7 throws light on how this chapter intriguingly highlights a pattern of God's miraculous provision during hard times. This pattern is not a singular isolated incident. It is instead a recurring motif that runs through the narrative of Exodus, thus emphasizing the omnipresence of divine intervention in human lives. We also witness a pattern of God's miraculous provision in adverse times, a constant theme throughout Exodus. Exodus 17:8-16, from the King James Bible, provides us with one of the most compelling accounts of the relentless war against Amalek. This tale manifests an allegory of the spiritual warfare we face each day. This prophetic message defies the constraints of temporal and spatial boundaries, crafting a poignant depiction of the eternal battle between good and evil. From this chapter of Exodus, we understand that upon the assault of the Israelites by the Amalekites, Moses instructed Joshua to handpick proficient warriors to engage in combat with Amalek. In the meantime, Moses took position on a hilltop, brandishing the staff of God, as stated in Exodus 17:11. And it came to pass, when Moses held up his hand, that Israel prevailed, and when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. Recognizing the significance of this narrative, a bedrock of biblical literature, is key to deciphering the ageless applicability and lasting wisdom of the scriptures, as found in Exodus 17:8-16. It unravels an elaborate mosaic of faith, resolve, and reliance on divine guidance. Each combat, choice, and triumph simply manifests unwavering faith in the divine. The warfare with Amalek, as depicted in Exodus, extends beyond a mere corporeal battle. Exodus 17:8-16 serves as an allegory for the internal turmoils that storm within our hearts. It reassures us that we are not solitary in our struggles, but part larger cosmic conflict. But what insights can we deduct from Exodus 17:8-16? This scripture educates us to have faith in God's power, to trust the course he sets during times of difficulty and hardship. It accentuates the necessity of prayer, a vital constituent of our spiritual voyage. As expressed in Exodus 17:8-16, prayer is not merely a plea for help, it's a sincere communion with the divine, a hallowed conversation. Prayer, as illustrated by Moses' actions on the hill in Exodus 17:8-16, is the central piece of our connection with God. It's about soliciting his guidance and might. It's about cultivating our relationship with him, fostering a profound bond that breaches the physical domain. It's an act of surrender, entrusting him with our faith, recognizing his omniscience and omnipotence. Turning our attention to Exodus 18 from the King James Bible, we encounter Jethro, who is Moses' father-in-law. In this chapter, Jethro dominates as a key figure, proffering strategic advice to Moses that becomes foundational in molding his leadership approach. Exodus 18:17, 23 of the King James Bible quotes Jethro's advice, "What thou doest is not good. Thou wilt surely wear away both thou and this people that is with thee. For this thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone. Hearken now unto my voice. I will give thee counsel, and God shall be with thee. Be thou for the people to Godward, that thou mayest bring the causes unto God. And thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws, and shalt show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands and rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s and rulers of 10s, and let them judge the people at all seasons. And it shall be that every great matter they shall bring unto thee, but every small matter they shall judge." This counsel, as recorded in the King James Bible, highlights the importance of sagacious advice and the relevance of task distribution, a leadership style that is both clever and efficient. The character traits of Moses, as detailed in Exodus 18, such as modesty and willingness to accept advice, make his story hit home with us. His receptivity, emphasized in Exodus 18, underpins the significance of being open to guidance, thereby demonstrating a crucial aspect of efficient leadership. This chapter further enlightens a recurring biblical theme: the relentless pursuit for and incorporation of wise counsel. The narrations from Exodus 18 serve as an ever-relevant prophecy, disclosing leadership principles that are still applicable today. The practical takeaway from this chapter of the King James Bible: the importance of employing wise advice in our leadership roles, assuring sound decision-making and effective governance. Exodus 18 encapsulates the idea that prayer should always concentrate on wisdom and discernment. And prayer, as always emphasized in Exodus 18, is for wisdom and discernment. As we delve into the scripture from Exodus 19:5-6 in the King James Bible, we find the Israelites poised at the base of Mount Sinai. Here, we are introduced to a momentous principle: the sanctity of God and the necessity of readiness to approach Him. Exodus 19:10-11 vividly punctuates the divine promise made by God to Israel, His grand design to mold them into a kingdom of priests, a consecrated nation. The awe, dread, and veneration felt by the Israelites, as illustrated in Exodus 19:16, stir a powerful emotional response in us, making their unique experience relatable. In the midst of this narrative, Exodus 19:14-15 states, God resonates a clear call for His people to stand apart, establishing a pattern that echoes powerfully through time. The pattern from Exodus 19:4 is vital as it paves the way for the formation of a covenant community, as outlined in verses 19:5-6. Now if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession. You will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. The prophecy from Exodus 19:9-12 is a mirror of God's intention, His divine action plan for His people. It shapes their identity and their grasp of their part in God's kingdom. As Exodus 19:22 highlights, the practical implication of this is the need for personal preparation to encounter God. Our hearts must be ready to with God, as we strive for a deeper comprehension of His divine sanctity. Our prayers, as encouraged in Exodus 19:8, must echo this pursuit for enlightenment and our response to God's sanctity. Ultimately, our prayer should be for an enriched understanding of God's holiness and our response to it, reflecting the essence of the covenant community formed under God's divine plan in Exodus 19:5-6. In conclusion, the chapters of Exodus 17:19 in the King James Bible illustrate God's provision, the importance of wise counsel, and the profound sacredness of God. For instance, Exodus 17:6 displays Moses enacting God's provision as he strikes the rock and water gushes forth, displaying God's omnipotence and Moses' faith in His powers. The voyage of Moses, etched deeply in this sacred narrative, is laden with timeless teachings. One such teaching is leadership, as described in Exodus 18:19-21. In this passage, Moses' father-in-law Jethro advises him on assembling a system of leadership, thus advocating the value of wisdom in governance. Additionally, these chapters also underscore the importance of faith and respect. This is personified in Exodus 19:5, where God's covenant with Israel is formalized, signifying the nation as his own, provided they obey his commandments. These stories, handed down through numerous generations, offer quintessential lessons all. They prompt us to acknowledge the need for wisdom, trust, and humility in our lives. These teachings aren't mere historical recalls, but the very cornerstones for forging a righteous, enlightened life. Thus, as we traverse our life journey, may we remember to seek God's guidance as Moses did at Rephidim, as documented in Exodus 17:1, to heed sage advice as depicted in Jethro's counsel in Exodus 18:19-21, and to ready our hearts to encounter the divine, respecting God's sacredness as the Israelites did at Mount Sinai, as chronicled in Exodus 19:16-24.